Let's talk about tariffs, shall we? There seems to be a lot of confusion going on lately. I think we should clear some stuff up. First of all, what are tariffs? Tariffs are like taxes, like trading taxes that countries put on each other to trade, like their products and services. They like put a tax on it, and those are tariffs.
Explain to you reciprocal tariffs. So here's China, they make this car. Here's the USA, they make this car. In the United States, the car is being made in that country. The car sells for $10,000. They come to the conclusion that they also want to sell that car in the Chinese market so they can open themselves up to make more money, sell more cars. So the USA is going to export that car into China for it to be sold. Now China says, okay, USA, we don't mind selling your car in China, but we are going to place a tariff on it because you didn't build it in China. So you want to bring it in and sell it here, there's going to be a tax or a tariff. So let's say in this situation, China places a 60% tax or tariff on car imports from the United States. So if this car costed $10,000 for the consumer in America, immediately once it gets to China, it's going to cost $16,000, right? Because that's 60% more than $10,000. Now, in China, they're selling a similar car for $10,000. So what problem arises? This American-made car being exported to China is not going to compete very well with a similar car that's selling at 60% cheaper. The Chinese-made car is selling for $10,000. Meanwhile, the United States-made car is selling for $16,000 because of this tariff. So United States says, well, you know what? That's your decision. But if you're going to play that game, China, when you come and try to sell your car that's supposed to be worth $10,000 in the United States, we're also going to place a tariff on it. Okay, so as a reciprocal tariff, the United States would also place a 60% tariff on those Chinese cars being imported. Now, in this perfect dream scenario, this would obviously almost cancel these out and just make us at a trade equilibrium. This isn't the case in real life.
In America, every other country put tariffs on us, like because we get a lot of imports from other countries. But America, we don't apply tariffs on other countries, but we used to. Unfortunately, we don't build that much here in America. Like we don't have that many factories.
We don't build anything, Phil. We don't make anything.
We do have some, like our automobile industry. And as always, anytime I show a clip or like a TikTok of a fellow creator, please go follow them and show them love, especially grand old Evan. I've been using a lot of his clips. He's really good at explaining all this tariff stuff. He's on TikTok, Instagram, find him everywhere.
It's so funny to see this repeated cycle of Trump announcing tariffs and then the left freaking out like the world's about to end, and then the tariffs working exactly as intended.
These trade agreements were written by corporate America, were written by Wall Street. The goal was to shut down plants in America, to stop having to pay workers in Iowa, Vermont, this country, decent wages.
The same people who praised Bernie for saying that the American worker was being ripped off by globalism are now bashing Trump for saying that same thing. The same people who used to praise Bernie for pointing out how Wall Street was raking in profits by exploiting cheap foreign labor and cheap foreign goods are now whining with Wall Street about the stock market.
In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, how far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers?
Is that if we don't write the rules, China will write the rules out in that region. We will be shut out. American businesses, American agriculture. That will mean a loss of U.S.
You guys
jobs.
have all been seeing on the news, we have issues with trading with China, and we have for decades. And we put most of our blame on Bill Clinton because, see, what had happened was Bill Clinton thought it was a good idea in 2000 to let China in on our free trade. So Bill Clinton allowed China to be part of the World Trade Organization, WTO, granted if they played by the global rules of trade. But China will never play by the rules. Keep this in mind. I'm going to say it a lot throughout this video, but America is China's biggest customer. when it comes to imports and trade.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here.
Anywho, let's go back to how China breaks all the rules. How does China break all the rules? Easy. They make garbage. They sell it to us. They make the cheapest products. And they also use slave labor by making these said products, sometimes even child labor. They also steal IPs, which is illegal. What are IPs? That's like Snoopy. That's like Disney's Alice in Wonderland. They'll steal cartoon characters and put it on a bag and shoes. You're not allowed to do that. They'll steal brands like Gucci, make it Gucci. They'll makeup products. Like let's say there's a big palette out there, an eyeshadow palette, like makeup by Mario. They'll copy it and they'll put crap in it. They'll put toxic chemicals in it that might even burn your eyes. That's illegal, but there's no stopping China. And that's how we have all these crappy apps like AliExpress and Temu and Shein. You guys know I'm guilty of Shein. I love my cheap shit. But you know it's also going to fall apart within a couple days, or if it's closed, a couple washes. Everything made in China is crap. They love to cut corners. They like to use crap to make crap. They use slave labor. Japan made is always better quality than China made. Just keep that in mind too. Granted, there are some resources and products we do need from China, but I think it's just about time that America puts tariffs on China like they have been putting on us for so long now with trade.
I have an excellent idea. Let's change the subject.
The ugly side of tariffs, truth be told, with tariffs comes inflation. But maybe that's what we need. Maybe we just need a little bit of inflation because it's going to help our economy out if we start building stuff in America. And not everything we have is from China. It used to be. Trump did have like a China trade war last term because probably only 13% of our imports come from China. So it's not like we get that much crap from them, but we are still their biggest customer. I have a friend who sells a bunch of like machinery parts. I don't know what you call it, like parts and products. I don't know how to explain it. But he was telling me that he noticed the other day that a lot of their parts that he sells are made in China. And he was getting kind of worried about that with the tariffs and stuff. Well, first of all, I would be more worried about the parts if they're made in China. They're probably not made that well. But anyways, well, I was explaining to him that yes, things are going to change. And I think that's why a lot of people on the right and left are nervous because people don't like change. They're definitely afraid of change. I don't like change. Change is scary. But maybe you're going to start getting that part from another country. Maybe we're going to start importing it from another country. Or maybe we're going to start building it here in America. And maybe we're going to start having more companies and maybe more jobs here because we're going to be building more here. In store, helping our economy, helping our unemployment, helping our job forces here in America. Eh? Trust me, inflation doesn't sound fun to me either. I'm a cheapo. I like everything. If you've been here long enough, I'm a cheap girl. I'm frugal. I'm not very materialistic. I don't care about having the newest phone, the newest car. I'm not that kind of girly, which just might help me out during this time. But I guess if you're someone who relies on those imports, you need that new smartphone every year and you are very materialistic with your like cars and imports, then maybe it might be a problem for you because it might be a little bit more expensive with the tariffs. Or we can start building stuff here. That would probably be a better idea since the people who work in the buildings that make your phone, there's a netting on the top of the building because they jump off due to the work conditions and the slave labor and how they've been treated. So maybe we shouldn't keep buying the same phone every year.
And people found out about what was going on at the Foxconn factories that were making iPhones, that they had fences and nets all set up around the roof to keep people from jumping off.
Nets?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You never seen it? Show those images. So instead of fixing it, they said, let's just make it harder to die. Do those nets. That's all stop suicide. That's how many people are trying to kill themselves. Because you're working 16 hours a day, you sleep there, they have dormitories, and this is why your phone costs X instead of Y.
Let me get this straight. Liberals think that they're morally superior because they're fighting for Americans to be making over $25 an hour for doing an unskilled job like flipping burgers at McDonald's. And no, I am not talking about a chef or a cook, specifically unskilled labor force. However, when it comes to other countries, they're entirely okay with purchasing products and taking advantage of people who are underpaid, overworked, and working in unsafe work conditions. Like, you're mad at the fact that you're not going to be able to buy a brand new iPhone every single year because the price of the iPhone is going to go up because it's no longer going to be manufactured in a country or by a company who's known for using 13-year-olds to put together your iPhone. I feel like you guys are mad about the wrong thing right now. This applies to almost every industry that we outsource for. The reason we outsource is because it's cheaper because they're abusing their labor force and we're enabling them by continuing to purchase from them. So in reality, liberals are entirely okay, with treating people this way so long as it's not them.
Hello from China. Let me show you the United States products in my home. Nothing. Do you have something from China in your home?
And that right there is what you should be mad about.
And possibly one of the biggest purposes of tariffs are negotiations.
I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China because they did retaliate. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing. I think that our country is going to be at the end of a year or shorter, but I think we're going to have something that nobody would have dreamt possible.
Even when Trump puts holds on tariffs, that's negotiations. The increasing in tariffs and decreasing of tariffs is also considered negotiations.
I think the tariffs are working, and I think the Democrats are pushing fake news. This is why I think this. First of all, they want to say that Donald Trump is only for the millionaires and billionaires. First of all, if the stock market is being destabilized, don't you think the millionaires and billionaires are the ones hurting right now? Let's keep that in mind.
Everyone got scared when the stock market crashed, and it's like, why are we worried about Nancy Pelosi's fortune? No, really, why are we worried about rich people's money?
Yeah, the stock market took a huge dip yesterday, over 1,500 points down. And while a lot of people are blaming Trump's tariffs for the drop, what if this was the plan all along? There's a theory that Trump is actually crashing the market on purpose to set up the biggest economic boom America's ever seen. By constantly talking about tariffs going up and down, he's creating this uncertainty in the market and around the world. And when investors get nervous, and stock prices, they plummet. Hey, but here's where it gets interesting. When stocks fall, investors who are nervous, they move their money into bonds, which help the U.S. government refinance its debt. Then, as the market drops, the Federal Reserve can step in, lower interest rates. And why is that a big deal? Well, because lower interest rates make everything cheaper. I mean, buying a house that we haven't been able to afford, getting a car loan, even business investments. And that could set the stage for a massive economic boom. Now, there's more though. Tariffs, they're not just about shaking up the stock market. They're also about bringing jobs and manufacturing back to the United States. And you know what? We've already seen this with companies like Apple and Honda. And plus, tariffs help keep our products that we don't want from coming in. Inflation is at 1.35%. That's the lowest it's been in 4 years. And mortgage rates, have you noticed? They're down for the 6th straight week. And even egg prices are down 69%. They're falling. So now, before you dismiss the whole thing, just know that Warren Buffett, you heard of him, one of the smartest investors alive, he says that Trump is making some of the best economic moves that he's seen in over 50 years. The guy's a smart guy. So is this all just a coincidence, or is there a bigger plan at play?
Trust me, all the rich people and celebrities, they're going to be fine. Plus, what happened right afterwards? The stock market had a historical comeback surge. China was also threatening that they're going to stop showing Hollywood movies in their theaters. And it's like, well, what? Don't threaten us with a good time. We hate Hollywood. We hate all the celebrities. We want them to burn to the ground. I mean, they're doing pretty good themselves with all the pandering and woke bullshit. But if you want to help us out, China, be our guest. I'm not really sure why people are worried on the right. I understand why people are worried on the left. They have to pretend to be because they just hate Trump. And anything Trump does, they have to hate. But people on the right were nervous. And I'm not sure if they're nervous because are they scared China's going to take us to war? Because I mean, I would be scared to go to war with China. But China's not going to take us to war over these tariffs, because we are still their number one customer. Plus, China is going through like this real estate crashing. I don't know. They're having all these problems with their property. That's been going on for years. So like their economy is already crashing. So I don't know why they would want to go to war with America. Being their number one customer just doesn't make sense.
People say that Trump doesn't understand economics because of headlines like this, but it's precisely because he understands economics that he's doing this. You see, China is not in a good negotiating position. They're dealing with a property crisis that they've been dealing with since around 2020. And if anybody remembers 2008, you'd know that a property crisis is just about the worst kind of economic crisis you can be dealing with. On top of that, we are their number one customer. So when Trump puts tariffs on China and makes it harder for Americans to buy Chinese goods, that's a serious threat because you're getting rid of China's number one customer while they're dealing with a property crisis. And when China tries to respond with tariffs of their own, it's a big mistake because their tariffs don't affect us nearly as much. Because China is not our number one customer. In fact, they only buy around 7% of our exports. We don't need them to buy our stuff nearly as much as they need us to buy their stuff. So think again before you say that Trump doesn't understand economics, because this is a game of chess, not checkers.
I don't know if people are worried about inflation or like getting stuff imported from different. I don't know what people are afraid of, actually. Because I mean, I think it's just change in general. There is going to be change when you make changes in the government, and things have to equal out.
Whatever you think of Trump, his economic plan makes complete sense. The US has 36 trillion in debt. In 2025, they will spend 6 trillion, but will only collect 4 trillion in revenue. So they need to borrow 2 trillion, and this will increase their debt to 38 trillion. Trump's economic plan is based on 3 levers. Number 1, cut expenses by 1 trillion, which is DOGE, Elon Musk. He's targeting waste and fraud, like social security payments for people who are 150 years old. That is just fraud. 2, increasing revenue by 1 to 2 trillion through, number 1, tariffs. They will increase tariffs from 50 billion to 500 billion target. People will say, but other countries will retaliate. They will not be able to do it. The US is the biggest customer on earth. They consume 20 trillion every year. They are the biggest importer. They import 3 trillion every year.
I've explained in depth in a lot of my other videos, explaining how the American dollar is going to be worth nothing in about a decade. Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare are going to be bankrupt in 10 short years. In 15 short years, the American dollar is going to be worth nothing because America is so much in debt that America will be in debt. The dollar will be in debt. Okay, let me put it this way. Regardless if you're rich or poor, let's say you're rich. Let's say you're poor. You need to pay rent in 15 years, and you have your debit card or you have cash, and you go to pay your mortgage or rent. You can't pay it because the American dollar is worth nothing. This is Jacob. He's the cutest baby in the world. And my thumb looks like this because he sliced my thumb open. Because he's so cute. I just with him too much, and I know I shouldn't.
You can love you, and hug you, and squeeze you all up.
I annoy the hell out of my cats. What can I say? What was I talking about? Oh, regardless if you're like a black Helen Keller that is in a wheelchair. Even if you had cash, you still can't go and buy food at the grocery store because the American dollar is worthless. America is bankrupt. But now with Trump's tariffs and with Elon's DOGE findings and all the corruption in the government and all the money laundering, all the fraud, maybe with the tariffs and the DOGE finding, maybe America has a chance. This is what we voted for. I don't know. Sounds pretty good to me. Maybe we can even bring the American dream back while saving the American dollar.
When did you love the government you? You're mad at this guy for trying to save you money?
Have you heard the saying, though, it's easier to fool a man than convince him he was fooled? That's kind of what a lot of people are going through right now.
We have somebody right now exposing the wasted money that the government, literal politicians.
And I also want to thank my buddy Kamala, who I work for up in the White House.
I don't know. I'm just kind of sick of seeing people on the right act like pussies. This is what we voted for. If you want change, then change has got to happen. Hell, we might get rid of income taxes if this whole tariff thing works out. Yeah, change is scary, but it's also exciting.
Las aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax.
You know, you're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses. Nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. You know, in the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money. And that's when our nation was relatively the richest. We were the richest.
Yeah, I think that's all I got. I've been just seeing a lot of mixed feelings and a lot of mixed information out there. I just wanted to see how you all are doing. Tell me how you guys feel about the tariffs and everything going on. But yeah, if you like this one, give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one. Ladies and gentlemen.